Imagine this. You're at an important networking event. Someone walks up to you, smiles, and says, "Hi, I'm Michael." You hear the name clearly. You even shake hands and continue the conversation. But just 30 seconds later, you can't remember what he said his name was. His face? You remember it? His profession? Probably. The confidence in his voice? Absolutely. But his name? It's completely gone. If this has ever happened to you, don't worry. It doesn't mean you have a bad memory. It doesn't mean you're getting older. And it certainly doesn't mean you're less intelligent than everyone else. In fact, psychologists say that forgetting people's names is one of the most common memory failures in perfectly healthy brains. But why? If your brain can remember hundreds of songs, childhood memories, movie dialogues, and even embarrassing moments from years ago, why does it struggle with something as simple as a name? The answer is surprisingly simple. Your brain isn't designed to remember names. It's designed to remember what helps you survive. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors didn't need to remember whether someone was called Michael or David. What really mattered was recognizing whether that person looked dangerous, friendly, or trustworthy. A single mistake could mean life or death. So the human brain evolved to prioritize faces, emotions, body language, and threats over names. Even today, your brain still follows those ancient survival rules. That's why you can instantly recognize someone you haven't seen in years, yet forget their name only moments after hearing it. It's not a flaw. It's simply how your brain works. Now here's something even more fascinating. The moment you meet someone, your brain becomes incredibly busy. Within seconds, it starts analyzing everything. Can I trust this person? Do they seem confident? What should I say next? Am I making a good first impression? While you're thinking about all these things, your brain is also reading facial expressions, tone of voice, posture, eye contact, and emotions. Then, hidden among all that information, comes one small word: their name. The problem is that a name doesn't tell your brain very much. If someone says, "Hi, I'm Sarah," what does the word Sarah actually mean? Does it describe her personality? No. Does it tell you what she enjoys? Not really. A name is simply a label, and your brain naturally remembers meaning far better than labels. That's why you'll often remember that Sarah loves traveling, owns a dog, or works as a doctor, but you'll forget her name. Not because your memory failed, but because your brain decided the other information was more valuable. This brings us to one of the biggest myths about memory. Most people believe memory begins when we try to remember something, but neuroscience says otherwise. Memory begins with attention. Without attention, there is no memory. Think about the last time someone introduced themselves. Were you completely focused on listening? Or were you thinking, what should I say next? Do I look confident? I hope I don't sound awkward. If your mind was busy with those thoughts, your attention wasn't on the name. Psychologists often compare attention to a spotlight. Only the information inside that spotlight has a strong chance of becoming a memory. Everything else slowly fades away. And during introductions, that spotlight is usually focused on ourselves instead of the other person. That's why names disappear so quickly. Not because you forgot them, but because your brain never stored them properly in the first place. Stress makes this problem even worse. Imagine walking into a room full of strangers. Your heart beats a little faster. Your breathing changes. Your mind starts racing. In that moment, your brain shifts into survival mode. Its priority becomes handling the situation, not remembering small details like names. Think of your working memory as a small desk. Normally, there's enough room for new information, but stress fills that desk with worries, emotions, and distractions. When another person's name arrives, there's simply no space left, so it quietly slips away. This is why you sometimes remember a forgotten name hours later while driving home or taking a shower. The memory wasn't gone. Your brain just couldn't access it while it was under pressure. So the next time you forget someone's name, don't blame your memory, because the real problem usually isn't memory at all. It's attention. And once you understand how attention works, remembering names becomes much easier. In the next part, we'll discover how emotions strengthen memory, what role the hippocampus plays in storing names, and the simple psychological techniques that can help you remember people effortlessly. So if forgetting names isn't really a memory problem, how do some people remember almost every person they meet? The answer is simple. They don't have better memories. They have better attention. But there's another secret your brain follows. It remembers what feels important. Think about someone you'll never forget. Maybe your first teacher, your childhood best friend, or your first crush. Their name probably came to your mind instantly. Why? Because emotions make memories stronger. Whenever an experience creates excitement, curiosity, surprise, or happiness, your brain releases chemicals that tell it, this matters, keep it. That's why emotional moments stay with us for years. But most introductions are emotionally neutral. Hi, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you. Nothing about that moment feels special. So your brain quietly decides that the information probably won't be needed later. But here's the good news. You can change that. The next time you meet someone, don't focus on remembering their name. Focus on becoming curious about them. Ask a meaningful question. What inspired you to start this career? How long have you been interested in this field? The moment the conversation turns into a story, the name becomes connected to something meaningful. And the human brain remembers stories far better than isolated facts. There's another important player inside your brain called the hippocampus. Think of it as your personal memory organizer. Its job is to decide which experiences should become long-term memories. But it has one limitation. It can only store information that received enough attention. Imagine trying to save a blurry photograph. No matter how expensive your camera is, you can't recover details that were never captured. Memory works exactly the same way. If you weren't fully paying attention when someone said their name, your brain never created a clear memory to begin with. So the problem isn't remembering. The problem is encoding. And that's an important difference. Modern life makes this even harder. Every notification, every message, every social media scroll trains your brain to constantly switch attention. Scientists call this attention residue. Part of your focus stays stuck on the previous task, making it harder to fully concentrate on the next one. That's why even face-to-face conversations often don't receive your complete attention. And without attention, memory simply can't do its job. Fortunately, remembering names isn't a talent, it's a habit. People who are good with names usually follow a few simple behaviors. First, slow down. When someone introduces themselves, don't rush to think about your response. Give their name one full second of your attention. Second, use their name naturally during the conversation. Nice meeting you, Daniel. So Daniel, what brought you here today? Repeating a name naturally strengthens the brain's memory pathway. Third, connect the name to one interesting detail. Emma loves painting. David enjoys hiking. Sophia is an architect. The more connections your brain creates, the easier the name becomes to remember. Finally, spend 1 minute reviewing the people you met after the conversation ends. Face, name. Interesting fact. This simple habit tells your brain that the information is valuable enough to keep. But perhaps the biggest reason to remember someone's name has nothing to do with memory. It has everything to do with respect. Think about how you feel when someone remembers your name months after meeting you. It feels personal. It feels genuine. It makes you feel important. Because remembering a name sends a powerful message. I noticed you. I paid attention. You mattered. And that's why people who remember names often build stronger friendships, better business relationships, and lasting first impressions. Let's go back to where we started. You meet someone. They tell you their name. A minute later, you forget it. For years, you may have blamed your memory. But now you know the truth. Your brain wasn't failing. It was simply following its natural priorities. The good news is that your brain can change. Every conversation is a chance to train your attention. Every new introduction is an opportunity to build stronger memory habits. And over time, remembering names stops feeling difficult. It becomes natural. Because in the end, memory doesn't begin when you try to remember. It begins the moment you truly pay attention. So the next time someone says, "Hi, I'm Michael," don't think about what you're going to say next. Listen. Be curious. Use their name naturally. Connect it to something meaningful. You may discover that remembering names was never about having a better memory. It was about giving someone your full attention. And in today's distracted world, that might be one of the most valuable skills you can ever develop. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more psychology and human behavior content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.